Hey everyone, welcome back, and today I'm going to be reviewing the first half of Season 5 of The Flash. I'm going to give you what I like, what I disliked, and what I'm hoping that will improve or be explored in the next couple of episodes. If you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe with notifications on so you don't miss any future videos. So starting with the biggest plot of the season, obviously, is Nora. She came back to see her father. At first, she lied about being stuck, but then it's revealed that she's not stuck and she just wants to spend time with her father because Barry dies when Nora is really little and she can't remember him. Right from the get-go, I love her chemistry with Barry. I mentioned this in my episode 1 review that she has a fangirl-esque personality because the Flash is her hero. That personality can get a little annoying at times. It kind of got played out, but from the beginning of the season, it was really good, and now it just feels a little played out and annoying. I also love how Nora doesn't know everything about Barry because the Flash Museum has all of the Flash's accomplishments, but it doesn't have any information about Barry Allen, obviously to protect his identity and family. So she had no idea that the Reverse Flash killed his mom, and she probably doesn't even know that Zoom killed his father either. That leaves some room for her to learn more about her father and develop a deeper love and connection to her dad and hero. She's also very rusty. She makes plenty of rookie mistakes, but rebounds here and there. You see that a lot in the first 3 episodes where she first learns how to phase, and then again when she's helping Cisco get Cicada off his back by faking his death. It kind of bothered me how much she messes up too. Like in episode 5 when she caught that biker and nearly killed that couple crossing the street. That kind of pissed me off just because that was extremely reckless of her. There's also a bit of a mystery to her character early on. Sherlock confronted her and questioned if she decided to destroy the satellite on her own or if she got help, and then by episode 8 it's revealed that she's working with the Reverse Flash. I can only assume that they're trying to mess with the timeline in a way that benefits both of them. So Nora gets a timeline where she grows up with her father, and Thawne lives in a timeline where he's not behind bars and probably achieving some other goal. There has been articles stating that Thawne's legacy will be explored, so that's why I think he's trying to achieve some other goal on top of getting out of prison. It can't just be that simple. And with the theme of legacy, I'd assume that he's trying to become the Flash's greatest nemesis, and to achieve that, he'd have to do something batshit crazy on top of killing his own mom. But of course, Team Flash will learn of Nora's alliance with Thawne in the future. That will lead to some drama and then most definitely a confrontation/battle with Thawne. Speaking of drama, there was some Nora and Iris drama in the first 4 or 5 episodes. It became the focus of episode 4 and 5, and I appreciate that it was resolved in episode 5 as opposed to continue to linger on into the back half of the season. Essentially, Nora is mad at Iris because in the future she dampens her powers and she sees that as Iris hiding an aspect of herself from herself. Then Barry reassures Iris that he trusts that she made the right decision because he has faith that any decision Iris makes is for the protection of their family. Nora doesn't like that, and then she spends some time with Cecile and learns that she has to see Iris in a new light. She has to get the chance to see the Iris she's spending time with now and recognize how cool she is, as opposed to projecting all of these feelings about future Iris onto present-day Iris. As for the dampening chip, we'd have to understand the context for Iris' decision in that future. I can only assume that because of Barry's death, she didn't want her daughter to suffer the same fate, so she hid her powers from her. I'm not sure that it's going to come up again, but knowing that Nora is seeing Iris in a different light now, she may be able to understand why her Iris in the future makes that decision by looking at the decisions present-day Iris makes now. There wasn't just Nora and Iris beef, there was also some room for some Nora and Barry beef. It seemed like when Barry agreed with Iris in episode 4 that she was going to be mad at Barry, but it didn't appear like that at all in episode 5. And then in episode 7, she got mad at Barry for always risking his life and seeming not to care if he dies and loses Nora. So she suggests to Barry that he should give up being the Flash. I do have to say that's a pretty big demand that leaves Barry speechless and unable to come up with a defense against Nora's argument. I don't think it really challenged him in the limited time of that episode, but it was a good question to the answer of how do we stop this future from happening? How do we prevent you from dying? Moving on to the big bad of the season, Cicada. I like how early on the team encounters Cicada. They first met him in episode 2, and usually the villain is teased in episode 1 through 5, and then by episode 6 or 7, the heroes finally confront that villain face to face. This approach felt less formulaic, and I appreciate that. So Cicada's whole story is that he becomes a surrogate father because his sister died and now he has to take care of his niece. He doesn't want to take care of the kid at first, and then he's sort of like a terrible father, but over time he grows to like her and better himself for her. Then the night of the Enlightenment happens, he and Gracie get injured. This devastates him and puts him on a warpath to kill all metahumans. He's been fairly interesting so far. I don't know where I would rank him or how I would compare him to other Arrowverse villains. He seems more grounded compared to the other villains of The Flash, and yeah, he's a metahuman, but his origin feels a lot more achievable if it were to happen in real life, as opposed to the other villains, so that aspect kind of makes him interesting in that vein. I'll talk a little bit more about what I don't like about Cicada later on in this video. Caitlin got a good storyline in the first half of the season. She got to do some things outside of being extra support for the team as Killer Frost and as a medical doctor. She was searching for her dad, who she thought was dead after all these years, but learns that he faked his death and that he's been hiding in her mother's old facility in the North Pole. We learned that he tried to cure his ALS through cryogenic experiments. It worked, and he used the same experiments on Caitlin, but it created an alter ego, thus Killer Frost is born. So that explains the mystery of how Caitlin has been Killer Frost ever since she was a child. It also created an alter ego for himself, which was Icicle, and during the big fight at the end of episode 6 in the CDC facility, Killer Frost reemerges. So again, this is a good storyline for her because she's lost so many people that have been close to her. She gets someone back, but then gets that person like ripped away from her again. But she gets some form of closure because there was this mystery of her dad being dead, and now she finds out that he's not dead. So she gets closure in that sense. But she also gets a reminder that, she hasn't lost her family because Team Flash is also her family. This year, The Flash crossed its 100th episode, and it was a pretty good episode. Their plan was to go back in time and acquire pieces to create a weapon that dampens Cicada's dagger. Along the way, Nora witnesses some of Barry's horrific moments, such as seeing Savitar, him losing his speed in Season 2, and encountering Thawne, and watching Barry's interaction with him and then learning that he killed his mom. I found this to be a good way to dramatize the fan servicey aspect of the 100th episode because you want to reference all of these great moments in a show's history, but in a way that feels good and less like a clip show. Barry's encounter with Zoom was okay, though it was short-lived. I was expecting a little bit more than that short 1-minute appearance, but you get what you get. But his meeting with Thawne was the highlight of that episode and even the highlight of the season so far. As for the Flash part of the crossover, I really enjoyed it. They always find a way to one-up themselves in one aspect of the crossover, and I felt like this year it was much more fun and joyful compared to last year's, which was a bit more serious. There were still some fun moments here and there during Crisis on Earth X, but if you look at the overall tone of last year's crossover, it was pretty hardcore, where in this crossover, it felt more light and fun. The basic premise of this episode was that they switched bodies and they have to... Well, they didn't really switch bodies, they switched lives. So Oliver was basically Barry Allen and then vice versa. So they have to learn how to use each other's abilities as well as act as each other if they're going to get through this particular predicament. Barry getting revenge on Oliver for, the whole training situation with the arrows way back in the first crossover. It was a really great scene overall, and then just seeing them in each other's suits and using each other's abilities, that was really cool. As for part 2 and 3, I'll review those parts together in my Arrow mid-season review. Touching up on some minor storylines and also some last-minute thoughts, I liked Cisco's arc of him faking his death and then not being able to use his powers properly. He questioned his value on the team, but then Caitlin reminds him that he's more to the team than just Vibe. He's a genius engineer, and that helps him when he realizes that he can use the Vo satellites to benefit Team Flash. And then there's him getting over Gypsy, which was mostly used as humor in the first couple of episodes, but in episode 2, they addressed it in a more serious tone, or as serious as they could get, because they had that whole montage with Ralph and his techniques of getting over women. But eventually, he got over Gypsy. Also, Ralph feels like he's not taken seriously by the city and by Sherlock as well as a detective. The detective part is resolved when his decision of finding where Cicada's mask comes from works, and Sherlock gives him the credit for it. And last, I really like Sherlock. I thought that having multiple Wells was getting played out, and it kind of is, but I kind of ignored that part of my brain telling me that and accepted that this is just a tradition that the show is going to continue to use in the foreseeable future, and I have to just appreciate it. In a way, I can see Sherlock being a mesh of H.R. Wells and Harry from Earth 2. He says some like rude things here and there, but it's mostly played out as humorous, and I kind of like that. Now moving into what I don't like so far about this season. First, Cecile in episode 2 mentioned how she was losing her powers, and then in the very next episode, she got them back when Cicada was in their house torturing Jo. Also, Iris jumping off a building to save Barry was just flat out stupid. You know, you can ignore the laws of physics all you want, but at a certain point it kind of gets too ridiculous, and that's my problem with it. Not the fact that Iris saved Barry in a life-threatening like crisis, but the fact that like that moment was just like ridiculous. Like she jumps and she's able to reach him moments after he was pushed off. Like in real life that wouldn't happen. Now, if Iris was saving Barry from drowning, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But jumping off a building and then catching up to him moments after he was pushed off is just like flat out stupid. Just in general, I think episode 5 wasn't really that good, mainly because of the drama. It just wasn't really executed that well in the writing and maybe in some of the actors' performances. Overall, I just didn't really feel comfortable watching this episode. It felt very cringy. Going back to Cicada, I felt like his performance has been flat. I wouldn't say his entire performance as Cicada is bad, but there was just this one scene that was just pure cringe. Like, I don't know what the director of that episode or Chris Klein, the actor who plays Cicada, was thinking, but it was just bad.
I'm gonna make this right, Gracie. Every matter will die.
But my argument to his performance being flat is that there's no nuance in the terms of how he like talks and acts. There's nuance to his motivation, but not so much to like his performance. Everything like comes off as like one note. Now you can argue that he sounds like that because he's injured, but at the same time, some of the things that he does and the lines that he's given and also the way that he like performs them just don't fall really well together. And then also he said something in episode 8 where he said like when he's done killing all of the metahumans, he'll join them. So essentially he's saying that he'll kill himself. And I don't agree with that, only because he has a daughter now that he clearly cares for. If he was a lone wolf or if he had like no love for Gracie, I would believe it. But since he has this child now, that complicates what he would do to himself, because that would essentially leave her without a parent again. She's grown attached to him and vice versa. And seeing how much Orlin loves her, I just don't think that he would do that to her based on the origin story that we got in episode 7. So in conclusion, I'll rank this season at number 3, with season 1 and 2 being above it. Does it have potential to be better than season 2? Maybe. But there's no way that I think that this season will top season 1. But nonetheless, I think that this will be a good season. I'm looking forward to seeing more Reverse Flash, seeing him interact with Team Flash again, especially Barry, and then also some better material for Cicada, some better material for Cicada in terms of Chris Klein's performance and in the dialogue that he's given. So that's it for this video, but here's my question for you guys. What are your thoughts on the first half of Season 5? Leave them down in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe for future Flash Season 5 videos. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and other than that, my name is Jobi-Wan Kenobi. May the Force be with you, and have a marvelous day from the LA to the DC.